had always been different from the other colonists. At 17 years old, he spent more time at the boundary between human and territories than anywhere else. His mother worried about him. His father thought he was wasting his potential, but did not care what they thought. He had found something out there in the crystalline forests that most humans would never understand. He had found a friend. Was a young female who stood no taller than himself. Her skin was pale blue, almost like the color of ice, and her eyes were large and dark, capable of seeing things human eyes could not. She had telepathic abilities that she still struggled to control. When she got excited, her thoughts would broadcast to anyone within 50 meters who was sensitive enough to feel them. Was sensitive. He did not know why, but he could sense her presence before he even saw her. It was like feeling warmth from a fire before stepping into the light. They had met 2 years ago by accident, was collecting samples of rare plants for the colony's medical team when was exploring the same forest on behalf of the council. They had startled each other. For a moment, there was fear on both sides. Then curiosity took over. They discovered they both loved learning about the planet. They both wanted to understand how things worked. They both believed humans and could be more than just neighbors who tolerated each other. The colony leadership did not approve of their friendship. Commander Hall, who led the settlement, had given strict instructions about maintaining proper boundaries, but was careful. He never brought too close to the human buildings, made certain her meetings did not interfere with her duties to the community. They met at dawn, when few others were awake. They met in places where they could see danger approaching from far away. On the day everything changed and were both excited about a discovery they had made. Deep in the crystalline forest, where the ground turned purple and the plants grew in strange geometric patterns, they had found evidence of a new plant species. The flowers were shaped like stars and glowed faintly at night. The seeds might have medical properties no one had studied yet. Dr. Perry, the colony's chief scientist, had requested samples, wanted to study the plant from a perspective. They had agreed to explore the site together that morning. The weather was good. The sky above 442B was a deep orange, and two suns climbed slowly toward their peak positions. The air was cool and the ground was dry. They walked through the forest, talking about what they might find, laughing at things that only they understood. Thoughts brushed against mind occasionally, little impressions of her excitement and joy. Tried to send back feelings of his own, though he was never very good at telepathy. His human brain was not built for it. They found the flowers exactly where they remembered them. The plants formed a circle around what looked like an old stone structure, something that must have been made by the or some other civilization long ago. Moved forward to examine the flowers more closely. Began to take samples, using the tools Dr. Perry had given him. They were so focused on their work that they did not notice the dark shape moving in the shadows beneath the crystalline rocks. The creature was unlike anything in the colony's records. It was large, maybe 3 meters long, with a body that seemed to be made of dark scales that did not reflect light properly. Its head was low and broad, with teeth that looked like obsidian blades. But the worst thing about it was the tail. The tail was thin and precise, ending in a point that dripped with venom. They could see the poison in drops on the ground, where it sizzled slightly against the stone. It had been nesting beneath the rocks, undisturbed for years. The flowers they wanted were right above its resting place. When it sensed vibrations from their movement, it woke. When it saw them, it was not confused or afraid. It was hungry and angry about being disturbed. Screamed, but the sound that came from her was not entirely human. It was a telepathic scream that hit like a physical blow. He felt her fear completely, as if it were his own. The creature launched itself forward, its movements incredibly fast. It went straight for because she was the closest to its nest. Did not think. He had no time to think. His body moved on pure instinct, the same instinct that had saved his ancestors on Earth when predators hunted them in the dark. He pushed as hard as he could, throwing her out of the creature's path. He threw himself toward the creature instead, trying to get between it and. The tail came up fast, saw it coming, but he could not move out of the way. The curved point struck him across the shoulder and upper arm. He felt the venom enter his body. It felt like fire at first, then like ice. The sensation was so strong that his legs nearly gave out. The creature struck again, but this time it was only air, had moved, and the tail passed beside him. Was already running. Her telepathic scream had attracted attention from others in the area. The creature heard the approaching minds and decided this was no longer worth the effort. It hissed a sound like grinding metal and retreated into the shadows, disappearing into the rocks faster than anything that large should have been able to move. Fell to his knees. His arm was burning. His vision started to blur. He could see running back to him, her face full of fear. He tried to tell her he was okay, but the words would not come out properly. His tongue felt thick. His breathing was getting harder. The world started to spin. The orange sky rotated above him. The crystalline rocks became strange colors that he had never seen before. He heard calling his name. He heard other voices, both human and moving through the forest toward them. Then the colors got darker and there was nothing at all. When woke up later, he would not understand what was happening to his body. He would not know that the venom was not killing him. It was changing him. It was rewriting his DNA in ways that should have been impossible. But that moment, lying in the dirt with kneeling beside him and strangers approaching through the trees, only felt pain and confusion, and the fatting certainty that everything in his life had just become much more complicated. The medical facility smelled like chemicals and clean metal. Lay in the center of a white room, connected to machines that measured his heartbeat, his breathing, his temperature. He had been here for 3 days. He had not woken up once. Dr. Perry stood over him with a deep frown, studying the numbers on the screens beside his bed. The venom had done damage that Dr. Perry had never seen before. It was not like any poison in the human experience. It was not attacking the body like a normal toxin. Instead, it was spreading through his bloodstream, reaching every cell, doing something to them that the medical equipment could not quite explain. His organs were failing one by one. His kidneys were shutting down. His liver was barely functioning. Without intervention, would be dead within 48 hours. The leadership had sent a message. They wanted to help. Specifically, they wanted to send Lysine, their most powerful healer, to examine through telepathic contact. This was where the argument began. Captain, who led the colony's security, said that allowing into a human's mind was dangerous. They could see secrets. They could plant thoughts. They could control him. Many colonists agreed with. They were afraid of influence. Commander Hall made the final decision. She allowed Lysine to come. She knew that without help would die anyway. At least this way there was a chance. Lysine arrived at sunset, her older body moving carefully, her large eyes calm. She placed her hand on his forehead and closed her eyes. For 5 minutes there was silence. No one in the medical facility moved. Then Lysine's eyes opened. She looked shocked. She looked sad. She looked like she had seen something that broke her heart. "He is not being destroyed," Lysine said slowly. "The venom is not a poison. It is a gift. But his body does not understand how to accept it yet." Dr. Perry stepped forward. "Explain what you mean." "The venom carries genetic material from creatures that evolved from our own species millions of years ago. The DNA strands are trying to integrate with his human DNA. His body is fighting because it is afraid of the change. But the change is not harmful if we help guide it." For 3 more days, Dr. Perry and Lysine worked together. They gave medicines designed to calm his immune system, to help his body accept rather than reject the foreign genetic material. Slowly, his vital signs began to improve. His temperature stabilized. His organs stopped failing. Color began to return to his pale face. On the morning of the 7th day, his eyes opened. His first thought was confusion. Everything was so bright. His second thought was about. His third thought was something he could not explain. He could sense her. He could feel her presence in the colony, somewhere to the east of the medical facility. He could feel her fear and concern like a second heartbeat in his chest. Dr. Perry was there immediately. He was checking vitals, asking him questions about how he felt, whether he could move his fingers, whether anything hurt. Answered the questions, but his attention was elsewhere. He was listening to in his mind. "Where is?" asked. His voice was rough, but the words were clear. "She is outside. She has been here every day waiting to see you. She refused to leave the facility." They brought in. She was smaller than remembered, though that was probably just because he felt strange and out of proportion to everything around him. Her blue skin seemed to glow in the artificial light. When she saw awake, she made a sound like wind chimes, something between a laugh and a cry. She reached for his hand. The moment her fingers touched his, something happened. Saw colors in his mind. He saw memories that were not his own. He saw his childhood running through the crystalline forests, learning to control her telepathy. He saw her fear when the creature attacked. He saw her relief when the rescue teams arrived and found him. He saw her sitting beside his bed every night, touching his hand, hoping he would wake up. Gasped. She had experienced his side of the memory too. She had felt the pain of the venom. She had felt his fear in the moment before darkness took him. She had felt his one clear thought, which was not about himself, but about whether was safe. "This should not be possible," Dr. Perry said, watching them. "Humans cannot have telepathic impressions without extensive training." "He is not fully human anymore," Lysine said from the corner of the room. "He is something new. We do not have a name for what he is. He is neither one thing nor the other. He is both." Captain stood against the wall, watching with suspicion in his eyes. Other colonists had gathered outside the medical facility. Word had spread quickly. The human boy who took the creature's bite was changing. He was being contaminated by alien biology. He would not be human anymore. Some people were afraid. Some people were angry. Some people were curious. For 3 weeks, recovered physically. His body healed with impossible speed. Wounds that should have taken months to close were healed in days. His strength returned, but it was different. He could do things his muscles should not have been able to do. He could move with precision he had never possessed before. More strange things began to happen. He could sense the electromagnetic fields from the colony's power generators. He could smell things that humans normally could not smell. He could hear conversations from rooms he was nowhere near. His senses were not quite as powerful as us, but they were far beyond normal human capability. The worst part was the fear from the colony. People looked at him differently now. They whispered when he passed. Some refused to be in the same room with him. Captain recommended that be quarantined, kept separate from the main population until they understood what he had become. Commander Hall refused, but she understood the concern. She asked Dr. Perry to conduct more tests. During one test was being measured for strength when he accidentally hit the testing machine too hard. The metal dented. No human should have been able to dent reinforced steel. The room fell silent. Dr. Perry wrote something down in his notes. Lysine, who was observing, nodded as if she had expected this result. "He is adapting faster than I expected," Lysine said. "His human will is working with the genetics instead of against them." "What does that mean?" Commander Hall asked. "It means he might survive this transformation," Lysine said, "and it means he might become something remarkable." But did not feel remarkable. He felt isolated. He felt broken. He felt like he was losing his humanity with every day that passed. The only person who truly understood was. She spent every afternoon with him, teaching him to control his new senses, showing him how to focus his mind. Through her guidance, he began to understand that he was not becoming less human. He was becoming something that honored both sides of what he now was. One evening took his hand again, and they could both feel it clearly. They were connected in a way that no human had ever been connected before. It was not love, not exactly, though it might become that someday. It was understanding. It was belonging. It was the answer to a question he had not known he was asking. He was not alone. He was not a mistake. He was exactly what he was supposed to be. 3 weeks after was released from the medical facility, the attacks began. A settlement 40 kilometers from the main colony reported damage to their outer storage buildings. Equipment had been torn apart. Food supplies were destroyed. The colonists had seen the creature, the same species that had bitten but larger and more aggressive than before. By the next day, 2 more settlements reported similar attacks. Within a week, 6 people were dead. The colony council held an emergency meeting. Commander Hall sat at the head of the table with Captain Dr. Perry and several other leaders. Was not invited to the meeting but attended on behalf of the council. The discussion was tense. Captain wanted to mount a military response, send out hunting parties, kill the creatures, solve the problem with force. Dr. Perry argued that they did not have enough information about the creatures yet. They did not know why they were attacking or where they were coming from. He wanted more time to study the problem. His voice came through the telepathic communication she was using to share the conversation with the other leaders. She was confused and concerned. They had not heard of creatures like this before. These things did not match any species in their records. They were something new, something unknown. Heard the conversation in his mind through. He could sense her concern. He could feel her fear mixed with her determination to help. He made a decision. He sent her a thought across the distance between them. It was not a clear word like telepathy, but more like a feeling and an image. I can help. Felt his message. She understood what he was saying. She brought his suggestion to the council. She said that might be able to understand the creatures in ways that regular humans could not, because of his connection to the venom, because of his new nature. Commander Hall agreed to hear his idea. He was brought into the meeting room and explained that these creatures might be similar to the one that had bitten him. He might be able to sense them, understand their patterns, track them in ways that others could not. It is too dangerous, Captain said immediately. He has barely recovered, and we do not even know if his abilities are reliable. Then we test them, Commander Hall said. We send a small team. A few soldiers, a few warriors. We follow the creatures. We learn what we can. If it becomes too dangerous, we retreat. The hunting party assembled 2 days later, stood with 6 military personnel, 3 human soldiers and 3 warriors. They had weapons but hoped they would not need them. They carried tracking equipment, cameras, and communication devices. They had supplies for a week in the wilderness. As soon as they left the safety of the colony, felt something change. The further they went into the open lands, the more he could sense the creatures. It was like they had a presence, a weight in his mind. Not telepathy exactly, but something like it. He could point and say, "They went this way. They are hunting to the northwest." The team followed his guidance deeper into the crystalline forest. The plant life grew thicker. The rocks became taller. The sky above them was hidden by the canopy of strange vegetation. Hour after hour, they tracked the creatures, used senses that had not existed in him weeks before. He could smell their passage. He could read the disturbance patterns in the air. He could almost hear them thinking, if thinking was the right word for whatever happened inside their simple brains. Late in the second day, they found the first creature. It was resting beneath an overhang of purple stone. It was massive, bigger than the one that had bitten. Its skin was from countless fights. Its tail was thick and covered in old venom stains. When it sensed the approaching team, it did not attack immediately. It stood and faced them, regarding them with intelligence that surprised everyone. Stepped forward. Everyone else froze, ready for violence. "Do not hurt it," said. "It is curious about me." Through the connection he did not fully understand, began to sense things from the creature's mind. Images came to him in broken pieces. He saw vast dark spaces underground. He saw caverns lit by bioluminescent fungi. He saw hundreds of creatures, organized, living together, moving with purpose. The creature in front of him was not hunting for survival. It was scouting for its people. "There are more of them," said, still facing the creature. "Many more, underground. They are looking for food and space to live. The creature that bit me was not acting in anger. It was defending its territory." "We should contain them," the warrior said. Seal the caverns if we can find them. But was still receiving images from the creature's mind. He was beginning to understand something deeper. These creatures had memories that should not exist. They had thoughts about civilization, about hierarchy, about loss. They carried sadness the way humans carried anger. "These are not animals," said slowly. "They used to be something else, something intelligent." For 3 more days, the team followed the creatures, trying to understand them. They found evidence of the caverns had sensed. They found stone structures deep below, ancient buildings made by some civilization millions of years in the past. The creatures seemed to live among these ruins. They seemed to protect them. On the 5th day, the team was preparing to return to the colony when they encountered a larger group of creatures. More than 20. This time, there was tension. The creatures felt threatened by the presence of both human and Captain Williams, the human soldier leading the security team, ordered everyone to stand ready for combat. But did something unexpected. He opened his mind, not completely but enough that the creatures could sense him. He showed them that he understood their fear. He showed them that he was not entirely human or entirely. He showed them that he wanted peace, not war. The largest creature moved forward. It was clearly the leader. It was so old that parts of its skin had turned white. It regarded with eyes that held knowledge and sorrow. The creatures lowered their tails and backed away slowly, leaving the team undisturbed. As the team walked back toward the colony, understood something important. These creatures were not monsters. They were something sad and displaced and looking for a home. The question was not how to destroy them. The question was what the colony would do when faced with a choice between easy violence and difficult understanding. Commander Hall would have to make that choice, and knew that his role was not to tell her what to do, but to make sure she understood what these creatures truly were. He had to be their voice. He had to be the bridge that his new nature had equipped him to be. The second expedition went deeper into the caverns than the first team had dared to go. This time, the group was larger. Commander Hall insisted on leading it herself. She wanted to see what it described. She wanted to understand the scope of what they were facing. Dr. Perry and a full contingent of military personnel made their way down into the earth, following passages that grew wider and more structured as they descended. The city was vast. Even in the darkness, lit only by the bioluminescent fungi that covered the walls, it was clear that this had once been a great place. Towers rose from the cavern floor, reaching toward ceilings so high that flashlights could not find them. Bridges connected the towers. Streets ran in organized patterns. Water flowed in channels that had been carefully engineered. This was not a simple cave dwelling. This was civilization. The creatures lived among the ruins. They had made crude modifications to the ancient structures. They had broken down walls to create larger living spaces. They had diverted water to better suit their needs, but they had also preserved what they found. They seemed to understand that they were living in the home of their ancestors. Dr. Perry was examining everything with intense focus. He took samples of the stone. He photographed the buildings. He studied the creatures' living arrangements. As he worked, he began to piece together a picture. "This was built by advanced beings," he said to Commander Hall. "Probably millions of years ago. The architecture matches design principles, but it is too old. It predates modern civilization." Heard this through their shared communication. She sent a message to the council back in the city. The response came back quickly. It was confused and concerned. They had no record of any such civilization. If they had built this place, it was hidden from their own historical records. Was focused on the creatures themselves. The old one that had approached him before came forward again. It was even older than had first realized. Its skin hung loose in places. One of its eyes was clouded with age, but its mind was sharp. Through their connection, began to receive information not as images, but as memories. Genetic memories embedded in the creature's very DNA. He saw the original beings, tall and elegant, with skin that glowed in different colors depending on their emotions. He saw them building this city. He saw them thriving. And then he saw the moment everything changed. He saw punishment. He saw forced change. He saw beings who refused to abandon the surface world being deliberately altered, their DNA rewritten, their intelligence reduced, their beautiful forms twisted into something crude and simple. Gasped, the memories were painful to experience. He staggered and would have fallen if had not caught him. "What did you see?" she asked, supporting his weight. "Betrayal," said. "Their own people did this to them, the modern or their ancestors. They did this because these beings refused to obey orders. They were punished by being made into something less than human." When shared this understanding with the group, the reaction was immediate. The warriors looked away in shame. The human soldiers looked confused. Captain Williams seemed ready for conflict, as if violence would somehow erase what had been done. But Commander Hall was thinking differently. She was studying the creatures with new eyes, seeing them not as threats but as victims. She was understanding that they were not enemies. They were a people who had suffered injustice for millions of years. The large group made camp in the cavern. Dr. Perry worked through the night, analyzing everything he had collected. By morning, he had preliminary conclusions. The creatures were not a separate species. They were, or at least they had been once. Their genetic degradation was deliberate and systematic. With the right treatment with genetic therapy, their intelligence could potentially be restored. They could become what they had been before, or something new entirely. The question was whether they should be given that choice. The warriors wanted to contain the situation. Too much shame was involved. Too many uncomfortable questions would be raised if the modern had to admit to this history. They wanted the creatures sealed away, left in the caverns where they could not bother anyone. Captain Williams wanted them destroyed. Too much risk, too much unknown. Kill them and the problem goes away, and could feel the desire in the military mind, the comfort of simple solutions to complex problems. But stood in the middle of the cavern with beside him and made a choice. He would not allow his voice to be silent. He would not allow fear and shame to dictate what happened to these beings. He opened his mind completely. It was the most dangerous thing he had ever done. He projected the creature's memories directly into the minds of everyone around him. The pain, the transformation, the loss, the survival against odds no one should have survived. He made them feel what it was like to be intelligent and capable and aware, only to have that taken away and replaced with fear and hunger, and the constant need to survive in conditions designed to break you. The experience was overwhelming. Some people fell to their knees. Tears ran down faces both human and. Captain Williams was on the ground, experiencing the memories of a being who had tried to protect young creatures from a predator, only to be punished for showing emotion it should not have had according to the beings who had changed it. For several minutes, no one moved. No one spoke. The weight of millions of years of suffering hung in the cold air of the cavern. When it was over, Commander Hall stood slowly. Her face was hard and determined. "We are not killing them," she said. "We are not containing them. We are going to do something much harder. We are going to help them. We are going to restore what was stolen from them." The council, watching through the shared communication, had a different reaction. There was anger. There was denial. There was fear of what the rest of the galaxy would think if this truth came out. But there was also something else, something that grew stronger as more individuals experienced memories and the truth of what had happened. There was shame that could only be healed through action. There was understanding that hiding this crime would not make it less real. There was recognition that these beings deserved justice, not burial and secrecy. For the first time, both human and were united not by agreement or law or politics, but by seeing and understanding the same truth. The creatures did not know they had been saved. They did not know that everything was about to change. They continued their lives in the caverns, and above them, in the light, the decision was made that would transform their world forever. Stood with his hand in hers, and he understood that this was the moment that had been fated since the creature's venom had entered his blood. He was meant to be the bridge, not because of genetics or accidents of biology, but because he had the capacity to see the humanity, the person, the intelligence in a being that everyone else only saw as a monster. That capacity was more valuable than all the strength or abilities his new nature had given him. It was the gift that mattered. 3 months after Commander Hall made her decision, the Cavern City was no longer a forgotten tomb. It was a place of purpose and change. Dr. Perry and a team of scientists worked in the underground laboratories, continuing the genetic restoration process. The ancient buildings were being carefully cleaned and repaired by workers from both the human colony and the settlements, and was here, day after day, standing between two worlds, translating not just language but understanding. The creatures themselves had been given the choice. They could remain as they were, living free in the caverns with guaranteed protection and resources, or they could undergo the genetic therapy that would restore their full intelligence and potentially extend their lives well beyond what nature would normally allow. The choice was theirs alone. No one was forced. More than half of them chose the restoration. The process was not instantaneous. Changes occurred slowly over weeks and months. The creatures' bodies grew stronger. Their skin began to regain some of its original luminescence. Most importantly, their minds awakened. Thoughts that had been buried for millions of years in their genetic code emerged. Intelligence that had been suppressed began to flourish. The first being to undergo complete restoration was the Ancient One, the leader that had approached on the second expedition. When the transformation was finished, the being that stood before was extraordinary. It was tall and slender, with skin that cycled through colors of deep blue and silver. Its eyes held knowledge and sorrow and the beginning of hope. "I remember who I was," it said too. Its voice was like wind chimes, similar to telepathic expression but spoken aloud. "I remember the city when it was young. I remember my mother. I remember the day they took it all away." Did not know what to say to this. He placed his hand on the being's shoulder, and through that touch, the two minds connected. The being showed not just memory but gratitude. It showed that it understood what he had done. It understood that he had sacrificed his own identity and comfort to give others their lives back. Over time, the restored beings began to take on names. They reclaimed names from their genetic memory or created new ones. The Ancient One chose a name that meant hope returning. The others chose names that reflected their dreams and their connection to their own history. His role changed too. She became the official liaison between the restored beings and the modern society. It was difficult work. Many in the population did not want to acknowledge what their ancestors had done, but was determined. She used her position to push for integration, for acceptance, for genuine reconciliation. She brought the restored beings to the surface world. She showed them the civilization that had replaced the one they remembered. She helped them understand that they encountered now were not responsible for the crimes of the past, but they were responsible for healing the present. The human colony was slower to adapt. Many colonists were still afraid of beings who had been called monsters just weeks before, but walked among them every day. He brought the restored beings to the human settlements. He showed the colonists that these were people, not threats. He taught the restored beings human customs and languages. He became, without anyone officially naming him, the ambassador between three species. One day, Commander Hall approached in the growing settlement that existed between the caverns and the main colony. A new city was being built here, a place designed for all three species to live together. The architecture blended human practicality with elegance and the ancient designs that the restored beings had rediscovered. "I have been reviewing the reports," Commander Hall said too. "You have not attended any of the official meetings in 2 weeks. You have not filed any status reports. You have not done anything that would suggest you are officially part of the colony structure anymore." Nodded, he had made a choice about his future. I cannot be bound by any single side anymore. Not human, not the restored beings. I have to stay independent to maintain balance. Commander Hall smiled. I was hoping you would say something like that. I am offering you an official position, mediator between the three populations. No military authority, no administrative control, but every community is required to listen to your voice. You will be the keeper of peace through understanding. Accepted, it was the right role for what he had become. Moved into a dwelling with him in the new settlement. They did not have a formal ceremony. Their commitment was expressed in the way they worked together, in the telepathic connection they maintained, in the quiet moments when they held each other and knew without words what the other was feeling. The settlement understood what they were to each other, a partnership between species, a promise that coexistence was possible, a proof that love could cross any boundary. A year passed, then 2 years. The restored beings numbered in the hundreds now. Their city was no longer a ruin but a living place. Children were being born. Some were born to parents who were both restored beings. Some were born to restored beings and modern. And in one remarkable case, a human woman and a restored being had a child together. The child carried genetics from all three lineages. Held the child and felt the complexity of its nature. It had human emotion and determination. It had telepathy and grace. It had the genetic memory of the restored beings, knowledge of a world that had ceased to exist before this child was even born. It was the future that he had made possible. The child's name was Unity. It was a name, but both humans and the restored beings approved of it. Years passed, grew into his role. He worked through conflicts that emerged between the three populations. He helped establish laws that were fair to all. He trained the next generation to understand each other. He and had children of their own. They grew up navigating three cultures and learning that identity was not fixed or limited. You could be more than one thing at once. You could belong to multiple worlds. On the day turned 25, the three communities held a joint celebration. A monument was created in the central plaza of the blended city. It showed three figures standing together, human and the restored beings, connected by hands and light. The inscription read simply, "Here we chose understanding." That evening, and stood looking at the monument together. The twin sunsets of 442 painted the sky in orange and gold. The light of the underground city glowed soft and warm below the surface. The lights of the human colony flickered in the distance like stars brought down to earth. "Do you ever regret it?" asked, "taking that bite for me?" Thought about the question. He thought about the pain he had endured. He thought about the identity he had lost. He thought about everything that had changed. "No," he said finally. "I was always meant to become this. That moment was just the beginning. The actual choice came every day after, choosing to understand instead of fear, choosing compassion instead of safety." Took his hand. Through their connection, she sent him feelings of love and pride. "You saved more than just me that day. You saved all of us." But knew the truth was different. He had not saved anyone. He had simply refused to be silent. He had simply been willing to see what others could not. And in doing that, in using his unique position to speak truth, he had given others the chance to save themselves. The story of the human boy who took the bite meant for an alien girl had become a legend, but knew the real story was not about the bite or the transformation. It was about what he chose to do with the person he became. In the end, that choice mattered more than anything else.